I kind of by accident ended up in Singapore. I definitely by accident got into the finance world. I guess it was 2022, so post-pandemic. I sold out of my shares in the business, so I had a little bit of money and no job. And Singapore is the wrong place to have a little bit of money and no job because it's expensive. Kind of around that time as well, I was looking for the next thing. I wanted something that I was passionate about.
What was the feeling when you decided to move from being employee to being employer and start working for your own?
It's a big feeling and it's a complicated feeling, and there's lots of them. There's like this blessing and a curse at the same time.
Hi, Brent. Thank you so much for coming to the Life of a Founder. How's it going?
Good, Max. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, of course.
So, before we start talking about your life as a founder, because life of a founder is not more about the company, but it's about the persons behind the company.
Yeah, sure.
So, would you like to paint a picture for me, where you come from and how all it all started?
Yeah, I think that's. Let me give you my story in a few words anyway. I'm American originally, and I kind of by accident ended up in Singapore, and this was early 2000s. And then I definitely by accident got into the finance world. So I was basically an M&A corporate finance guy for a long time, and then was running a wealth management business. And I guess it was 2022, so post pandemic, I sold out of my shares in the business. So I had a little bit of money and no job. And Singapore is the wrong place to have a little bit of money and no job because it's expensive. So my family and I decided to move to Bali, Indonesia. And kind of around that time as well, I was looking for the next thing. And I think the way I approached it is I'm early 40s, so I'm 43 right now. And I kind of just went, what do I want to do for the next 10 years of my life? That was the kind of time frame that I thought about. And I spent a long time reflecting on that. And, I kind of half-hearted tried to get another job, another corporate job. And I think the universe made me not get another job. And I had this idea in place for this company. And so here we are, So it was a little bit of fate and a little bit of luck, I suppose. And that's how life works a lot.
It looks like when I moved from Milan to London, it was the same. I sold everything. I moved to London, and there are this kind of city, London, Singapore, where burning money is like having a coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
So you very much go, you can burn everything overnight. And although I do love Singapore, it's so well talked about Indonesia now, especially when it comes to Southeast Asia. There is so much good that comes from. At least what people say about. I mean, I've never been there. I hope I can come very soon. But there is it's very well communicated. Let's put in this way. But anyway, sometimes it's a bless. Don't get a job, so you can start yours.
Exactly.
Uh, and what has been the motivation for you to start your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think you should skirt away from as an entrepreneur the fact that you want to make money. I think that's the driving force in a lot of things. If I was independently wealthy and never had to work again, I think I would do something, but I'm not sure I would be doing exactly what I'm doing now. And I don't think a lot of people think that's a taboo thing to say. But as an entrepreneur, especially one who's taking on investors and trying to grow a business, I think you need to be realistic and go, those investors are looking for an ROI. You as an entrepreneur want to get paid, want to build wealth. And that's I think when you're sort of analyzing where you want to go and what kind of industry you want to work in and the scalability, it's important for that. And then I think, I have two young daughters, 10 and 4. And, I think when you become a parent, you start thinking in kind of a different time frame a little bit because, I'm 40. I'm only here on this planet, God willing, for another 40 years, maybe 50 years, where they're on this planet for another, you know, 80 or 90 years. And so I'm kind of relating that to the climate change and how important that is. And so I looked and I thought, whatever I do, whatever business I start, it needs to be good for the planet or the community, or at least no harm, right? It needs to be sustainable. That's not a buzzword anymore. So that was an important ethos for me personally. And then what was the other thing? I wanted something that I was passionate about. I love building businesses in general. But I think there's a difference between building a porta potty business, and building a cool car business, which is what we're doing, right? So that sort of passion is really important because every single day you got to wake up, you got to go to work, you got to do the grind, especially very early days when you're a founder and there's basically nobody else. You're doing everything. There's nobody else, you know, the only check you really have is, do I succeed? But nobody's looking over your shoulder. There's no boss saying, hey, get this report done or do that or make a phone call or whatever. It's all has to be self-motivating. And I think that obviously that requires discipline, but also passion. So very important that I was passionate about what I did.
I mean, I can't agree more. Without passion, there is no way you can be a founder. I mean, it's just too complicated. It's up and down every day. I mean, I can tell you, I've done 5 startups in my life. EquityMatch itself, it's a startup. It's only 24 months old, and from wherever you start, it's still a startup. So the effort is huge. You know very well that any day can be the last one
Hmm,
or can be one more.
yeah,
It's very complicated to be a founder at the very beginning. It's much easier run 1,000 employees company than a startup. There is no comparison.
yeah.
But so I very much agree. The passion and ambition are key. Without them, there is no way you can go anywhere. But what you are 43, so you are not 20 years old. So as many founders try their first startup, and you have a lot of experience for your previous jobs, especially M&A, where I come from M&A myself as well. You get a lot of experience because you see companies almost every day. But what was the feeling when you decided to move from being employee to being employer and start working for your own?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a big feeling and it's a complicated feeling and there's lots of them. I think there's a lot of excitement, like I'm going to do this. But there can also be a lot of fear. When you're going to the corporate job, yeah, there's some dreariness in the corporate life and meetings, et cetera, especially in the M&A world where it's bankers hours. But at the end of the month, you're getting a paycheck. If things are good, maybe you get a bonus and there's some level of security and you have your colleagues and you go in and, whatever, the email system works and, there's waste baskets and all the infrastructure is there. Whereas as you know very well, Max, as an entrepreneur, you basically start from zero. You go, what will be the name of my company? And that's not always an easy thing. And it all starts from there. What are we going to do? I need to cut something. I need to go buy scissors. Nobody's giving you anything. So there's this real sense of, I don't know. I'm not an artist, but I imagine it's like being an artist and you see this blank easel and you go, I'm going to create the most beautiful painting that I can. Um, and it's scary and it's exciting and it's amazing all at once.
Absolutely. But when you start a business, is you're right. I mean, you need to think about everything. There is nothing to do. It's a totally up and down all the time long. But how your life changed? Me, I'm talking about not only your life as working, but also your private life.
Yeah, I mean, uh, like I said, I worked sort of banker's hours for a long time. So sort of, 8:30 in the morning until 6:30 at night. And, you know, basically, if you want to take a holiday, you got to say, "Oh, hey, can I have my holiday, or can I travel?" And the company might say, "Well, you need to be here on this date," right? So, to a certain degree, the cost of having that salary is your life is not your own, right? Whereas all of a sudden you become an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and nobody's checking. I could go, send emails at 4 o'clock in the morning and sleep all day, or I could wake up at 10 and go surfing and then do work in the afternoon or whatever. So there's like this blessing and a curse at the same time, always. Like living in Bali, my life is great. I see the kids off to school. I do my morning surf, a little bit of a meditation. And then the morning times generally are for me, right? I come in, I do the admin of the business and spreadsheets and PowerPoints and all that stuff. And then, I usually have the meetings in the afternoon because that just happens to be what works for me. And oftentimes take a break, so I can spend time with the kids, have family dinner. But at 10 o'clock at night, if I need to be, I'm on the phone, right? Like that's what you have to do. It's a global world, and again, nobody's doing it except you. So you just got to do what needs to be done.
That's the beauty and the challenge of being an entrepreneur, right?
Mm,
I find myself, I remember at the very, very beginning, my first company, I was working probably, I don't know, 18 hours per day. Was too much.
yeah,
I was very unexperienced. And for me, working a lot was equal to succeeding, which is not at all. It's very different. It's the quality matters more than quantity in business. But you need to find a kind of balance, right?
mm,
I'm still answering message at midnight and wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, having my partner complaining all the time. So what are you doing? I mean, you don't spend any time with me. That's
yeah,
my routine, my daily routine. But on the other hand, there is no way you can avoid it, especially when it comes the very beginning, because you're overwhelmed by too many things. You are just you, and maybe if you at the beginning can afford 4 or 5 employees, which is already a lot when
yeah.
you start.
Right.
So it's very much all about you. But which kind of struggles did you find at the very beginning? Where do you find the most difficult things to deal with when you started?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing is you're going to have everybody has hurdles and setbacks and problems and hoops to jump through. And I really, really believe that the success comes from just kind of staying and doing it and going. Yeah. I always use this analogy of almost like a boxer in the ring. Yeah. You're getting hit a lot as an entrepreneur, right? As a startup guy, you have to hit the phones. Hey, will you invest in my business? Will you invest in my business? Will you invest? This is it. Like, and I've raised a lot of capital over my career and at all levels, right? At private equity, big ticket deals to little retail investors as well. And it's never easy. And you get a lot more no's than you get yeses. And you think that you're about to cross the line and you don't. And I think that's why most startups actually fail is because basically you give up. So the trick is to not give up, to just keep going, to be in the ring, taking hits, dodging it, taking it, and then once in a while you land a punch, right? And the punch is like, I mean, I don't want to endorse violence. That's not what I'm doing, but the adrenaline rush you get from that, right? That success. Somebody out there believes in me to give me money for my company because of what I've said, right? And I'm going to go out and do that. So that
That's
is the
completely cool.
yeah. So whatever you want to call that, the discipline, the motivation, dealing with the failures or the no's. Yeah, because like I said earlier, you might have some friends or your partner or whoever that's like, yeah, rooting you on. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you are the person sitting there for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day having to do that. You got to just go out. You get that email that says, no, sorry, not interested. Send another email. Pick up the phone and start dialing. You know, that's it.
I mean, I had to say, it's so difficult to do, but it's so simple to say. So, for example, you send 100, 200 emails per day, you still get maybe two answers that are even negative. So you need to restart again and again and again. That's why many founders they give up. It's very very tiring. So all the time, keep going, and for weeks you have not even answer. So it's very frustrating, and this is why many founders they give up. But uh, in terms of routine, do you have your daily routine? Try to keep you fit mentally and physically.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, right? I'm fortunate. I live in Bali, so there's a lot of running on the beach or going for a surf in the morning, some personal time to myself, the kids, a nice breakfast, eat healthy. And I think it's really what what I really look to try to do is quality time. Yeah. I think if I'm really honest about it, from what I've seen from myself or being the boss, when you work in the corporate life, you might go to the office 8 hours a day, but really you're kind of working 3 hours a day, right? You're on social media, you're taking a lunch break or whatever, right? And it's pretty normal. So I'm not interested in my routine in spending, I'm not interested in busy work and spending time just for the sake of doing it. When I work, I want to work and I want the output to be good. And I think that the most important word is value, right? If I work 1 hour a day, but that value is, through the roof, that's way better than doing 8 hours of, nonsense.
Correct. Agree.
And one of the things that I've seen in corporate world as well, and I think this is a lot of people's frustration, is it's like you spend 80% of your time in corporate world doing the admin of running the business and 20% on the actual business, right? And that's why all these
Correct.
big like companies that are really successful, whether it's software as a service or accounting or Zero, da 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 da, are all designed to make the admin of the business easier, but you just have to spend so much time doing it. But people forget, they go to the office and they go, "Oh, I replied to a bunch of emails." I'm like, but where's the value? You know, if you're a sales guy, don't go in and reply to a bunch of emails. Pick up the phone and say, "Hey, do you want to buy my product?" That's the value. The emails can wait. So it's a roundabout way of answering
Correct.
your question and going, "What's my day to day?" Well, my day to day is I have my personal stuff that I do, and I like to keep a work life balance. But the most important part is when I work, I try to be focused and I try to be productive and I try to build value on the business. Whatever I do, whenever time.
I mean, that's the best way to go. But did you ever thought I'm the most unqualified founder and maybe I can run my business?
Oh yeah, all the time, right? Um, I mean, what's quite interesting, it's kind of funny in a way that I'm in the car business, right? We electrify vintage cars from petrol to electric motors, but I'm not a car guy, right? I didn't even have a background in cars. I certainly know how to drive, but I was the kind of guy that went to the mechanic and he'd say, "Oh, we have to do this," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, great, no problem." Where I came from, it was the business side of things. And I think I'm an experienced business guy, right? Scaling, selling, building a product, executing operations, all that stuff I have, you know. But my learning curve, obviously we have the technical expertise on the car side, but still as the CEO, you have to know and you have to learn. So the learning curve has been very, very steep in that regard, especially when I'm talking to people who are car people or engineers. Um, so I think sometimes it's like I'm very grateful that I have all this business experience. But there's other days where I'm like, oh man, how can I make a decision around the engineering question they're asking me if I'm not an engineer? And so it's really important to have good qualified people around you who can give you good advice or explain things. That's super important.
That's correct. That's correct. Uh, what do you find the most enjoyable part of your day in running your business?
Well, it's going to sound kind of simple, but I like when things go well. And like we kind of talked about earlier, the challenge is things don't always go well, you know. So what I like to I think there's a Silicon Valley notion, you know, when people go in and say, oh, I'm going to do a software business, we're going to disrupt this, I'm going to build an app, and the expectation is the growth goes like that, right? All of a sudden you're viral, everybody's using your app, and you're rich and all that. But I think it's more realistic for at least our business. I'm looking for constant, consistent iterations of improvement. What can I do today to improve on what I did yesterday? Even if it's just a little bit. Yeah. Little bit, little bit, little bit. So every day I look for those moments where I can build on what happens yesterday. And then if you keep at it, eventually you look and you go back and you go, oh wow, 6 months ago, I can't believe it. We were there. We weren't doing anything. I was begging for money, and oh, now people have invested. I'm building cars and I'm doing this, etc. But you got to do it every day, you know. So it's like the small wins. I enjoy the small wins every single day, you know, because I think those add up to big results.
I mean, there is a saying, Rome was not built in a day, in a night, and that's true. There's different story well scaling 24 months or scaling 5 6 years, but in somehow I'm very much keen to even steady, but you must move, even if a bit, but you must move every day, even though you are not scaling 20 30% month on month. This is not a number for any kind of business. There's just few business can do this. But if you move, that's the good. You must continuously and constantly improving, and that's where I do believe if you continue to do this, you will succeed in any way. It will take a bit longer, but you will get there.
Yeah.
But did your life as an entrepreneur badly affected your life as a father, husband, if you're married? I don't know. So did have a bad, or you manage pretty well?
Wow, it's a good question, and I'm trying to think, how do I answer this without being sexist? I don't want to be sexist. My wife is a wonderful woman and a very supportive woman. Let's start there. Let's get that on record. Yeah. But I also think it's very natural for, I guess, for anybody, but for women to want to have security, you know, especially when you have young kids, you're still building your wealth,
Yeah.
etc. So there's a big risk to go from corporate job to entrepreneur. And you can say, "Ah, but listen, one day we're going to be really rich and we can live this lifestyle. It'll be great." But you got to put in the work to get there, and there's a risk during that time frame. So yeah, I think it changed because I needed her support and blessing to even start. And she's been supportive around that. But I also think there's an extra bit of drive that comes in for me because in many ways there is no plan B. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go, well, that didn't work out. Let me just go get a banking job tomorrow back in Singapore.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like this is it. Um, and that I think that what's the right word for it? That fear, you know, let's use the right word. Like that fear of, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? Turn that into a driver. Yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a satire, but that old movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, right? Leonardo DiCaprio, and he has that speech, and it's like, you know, and he's going, "Oh, you're afraid, or you're in debt, or your wife is mad." Pick up the phone and start dialing, right? And that's basically the solution as an entrepreneur, right? You have the control to do something right now every single second, especially when
That's true.
the world that we live in, when I mean like this connected internet world with low cost platforms, are free, Google's free, right? Google right now, you know, angel investors for car business in Indonesia, right? See what comes up. Send an email, you know. So it's about turning that, yeah, there was support, but there's also that I can never fail my family or myself. So how do I drive forward?
I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I live this, and women they look for stability.
Yeah,
So an entrepreneur at the very beginning, but not only at the very beginning, it's not stable at all.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a different story, and I understand it's not easy to support an entrepreneur because it's not stable at the very beginning unless rich. But if you're rich, you're not entrepreneur as we intended to be, and also because yes, you spend so much time working that they feel you don't care about them. So it's a trade-off, very difficult to
yeah,
balance,
yeah, yeah.
totally difficult to balance. Yeah, we try, and
Right,
I've been
yeah.
there. I'm still there. I get complaints every day that I work too much. It's okay. It's fine. But let's talk about the less pleasant part of any entrepreneur, which is failure.
Hmm.
How many times do you think about failure per day? Or if you think about failure?
Um, yeah, I think it's not really something that I think about. It's just something that's always there. Yeah. And I think the funny thing about building a business or building a even personal life and wealth is there's this tendency to go, the more you have, the more you're going to spend as well, you know? So when you start out as a startup, right, you maybe have some of your own cash, maybe not, right? But you're basically starting at zero. And then you got to raise money, you got to sell products, you got to generate that wealth. But if you went out and raised, or when we haven't done it yet, but when we do our Series A round and we go and we raise 5 million bucks, you know, there's kind of like one day of going, whoo, awesome, look at that. But then the next day, that money is being spent. You know, investors are giving that money to you to spend on infrastructure, on acquisitions, on developing, on basically turning that money into more money. So it's not like I go, oh, I'm going to fail, but it's more like I go, I have to succeed. This drive is always there. There's always something chasing me, whether it's a competitor or invoices or salaries or something, you know? It's that old American adage, the buck stops here. And when you're the founder, the buck stops with you and you have no choice but to go forward. Um, I don't think it's healthy to live in fear, but I think if you're able to turn that into discipline and motivation, it's great. It can be very useful.
Hey, do you find that, for example, I try to give myself and many founders I've been talking to, they do the same, to give some kind of discipline, which means some repetition every day. Waking up 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, go out, walk your dog, or go to the gym, whatever you like to do. So having some kind of rules, right? Because some entrepreneurs they do very much, others are pretty much as it goes.
Yeah, I think, you know, actually that started for me years ago, even pre-pandemic, when I would work from home occasionally. And my my partner at the time, my girlfriend, she'd call me up and go, "Oh, hey, can you put the laundry from the washer into the dryer? I know you're at home." Well, actually no, the boundary is I'm working, right? And so nowadays, especially where a lot of us work from home or we're digital nomads or whatever, yeah, like you said, you have to have your own rules and boundaries that work for you. You, for me anyway, and I think it's very unhealthy for a lot of people. You can't roll out of bed in your pajamas and then go, "Oh, I'm going to start answering emails from the couch." That doesn't work. There has to be a transition where whatever it is that works for you, you go. Now it's gone from home and family time to now it's work time. I'm in that space right now. You know, that's what I'm doing right now. And what is that? It's being present. It's being mindful. It's being focused. It's being disciplined. Even if I go to my daughter's horse riding lesson or something, I don't make a phone call, or I try not to make a phone call while I'm there, because then it's like, well, I'm not being present with her and I'm not being present with work. You know, like if you're going to do something, just focus and do
That's
it.
correct.
You're better off, you know, yeah, focus on your family's whatever for that half hour, an hour, and then you go, okay, now I need that time to go work. Yeah, set those rules and boundaries. Be driven.
That's you can find this level of stability and focus. That's would be the best thing to do. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And I completely
Yeah.
agree with you. When you do something while you're doing another thing, you are doing nothing. So must be focused only on one thing, 1.1. And I fully agree on this. But uh, in everything happened to your life up today, what's your best lesson?
Woo. Wow, that's a big, broad question. Um, I think over time, your priorities change in life. And for me, anyway, that happened right around family time. Because I think when I was kind of young and single and free and trying to be the deal guy and go up the corporate ladder, there's a lot of that ego that's involved, right? And I'm not saying that there's anything bad with that sort of ambition, you know? But my focus was on a different space than what it is now, which is, I love my family. I want to support them. To me, wealth now is something that's a lot more than just money. Before it was probably just money. Now I'm like, wealth is different. Wealth is community. Wealth is time. Wealth is my family. Wealth is health. Wealth is money for sure. I don't want to disregard that, but there's a lot more of those things, and I think that's there's a lot of hard parts about being an entrepreneur, but there's a lot of great parts as well, which is, I have the ability to set my own schedule and go watch my daughter at gymnastics class or go out to lunch with my wife or whatever, right? And that's really where the wealth is for me. So that's my lesson, is to step back and really try and understand what your values are. What is it that you value personally, and go for that.
I mean, that's a great lesson. That's totally true that when you're young, wealth takes a different way. You really think about wealth as money, cars, whatever it is. And after you understand that wealth is not just money, but it's something different. Actually,
Yeah,
that's something different. It gives you much more than money. Money comes and go. Period.
yeah,
People close to
exactly.
you, if they're very much close to you, they stay. Yeah, they really much stay. But from lesson to wish, what's your greatest wish?
My greatest wish, my greatest wish on earth would be that my family and I grow together in a happy and healthy way. That would be my greatest wish. Yeah, everything else I think is secondary to that. And it's as simple as that as well.
I totally agree. And let me close our beautiful talk with recommendation. If you can give any recommendation to founders, first founder, whoever they are, what can be?
Um, yeah, listen, I'll steal a slogan. I say just do it, right? Steal the slogan from Nike, just do it. Nobody is giving away money. Nobody is giving away success. You have to earn it. So every time you say, "Oh, I can't because of this reason," or "I'm not going to do that," or whatever, you're just setting yourself up for failure. If you're going to do it, you do it, right? And you go full in, and it doesn't matter how old you are or what the idea is. You believe in yourself, you believe in your idea, and you just do it, right? The playbook is out there. There are no secrets to business success. All the tricks are very public. Work hard, right? Sell more than you spend.
Very, very public.
Yeah, simple.
Brent, thank you so much for coming to the Live of Founder. I really enjoy your talk and really thank you again. And I hope having another nice talk to you
Thank
soon.
Max.
And I do wish you all the best to you, your family, and of course your
Yeah, of
business.
course. And
Thank you
same
so
to you.
much.
Thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.